Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Workflow Show, where we talk about tools, tips, and techniques for motion design. I'm EJ from School of Motion, and I can't tell you how super pumped I am to have on for the first time ever to the Workflow Show, Rick Barrett, the group product manager over at MAXON. And what we're going to do today is talk about all things Cinema 4D, specifically the new release that just released, I think a week or so ago. Time's a weird thing in flux with quarantine, but S24 is out, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And let's welcome to the show, Rick Barrett.
Hey, thanks for having me, EJ. I'm excited to chat about S24.
Yes, let's do it. So yeah, what I want to say is that we're going to keep this pretty loosey-goosey, and if anyone in the chat has questions while we're, covering features and stuff like that, please don't hesitate to throw those questions in the chat, and we'll answer them along the way. And we're also going to have a big Q&A session at the end. So if you didn't get your question answered, be sure to throw them in. We're going to save them and answer some at the end as well. So I guess we could just get into it. And, we're getting rapid fire C4D versions, I feel like, because you guys are releasing twice a year now. And S24 just came out. Was it last week?
Last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday. I'm losing track of time here, man. But yeah, let's just dive into it. There's a lot of really cool stuff. I think some of the most powerful game-changing features in a while. Specifically, my favorites are the placement tool and dynamics placement tool, but I'll let you kind of show the hype and why I'm so excited.
Sure. Yeah. Our real goal with S24 was to provide assets, make it easier than ever for artists to get access to things that they could make use of in their scenes, and then to make it easier to use those things in their scenes. So the first thing we did was add the asset browser. That's got a button right there in the middle of the screen, and it provides easy search of all of the assets that we provide, as well as the assets that you want to catalog on your own. And yeah, let's go ahead and bring up. There we go. We got the screen up. And yeah, so here in the asset browser, you can just type what you're looking for, like vase, and you get a list of vases. You can type any number of keywords, like we've keyworded colors, so you can type blue and you get a whole bunch of things that are blue. You can type lamp if you want to find lamps.
Love lamp.
And all of this is based on a really rich database with tons of metadata built into it. So any of these vases, when I choose them, you can see down here, we've got all the information about the object. You can even twirl this down and you see how many objects are included, how many points and polygons, how many materials, and even the dimensions of the object. And we also have the ability to put in some proxy geometry, which is something I'll mention a little bit later. You also can see all of the dependencies related to this object. So in this case, it's just some internal stuff like SLA, which is our noise shaders. But in many cases, that will actually show you the plugins that you need in order to use this object. And then you've got the keywords, and here's all the keywords that we've provided with this object, but then also you have access to create your own keywords as well. So maybe you wanted, flower's already a keyword. Wow.
But you could work on a project and be like, these are the assets I'm working on for this client, plug in those keywords for that specific client or scene or whatever, and easily find that stuff.
Totally. And then versions, you can actually have multiple versions of every asset as well. I mentioned the dependencies. We can, for instance, even search by those dependencies. So if I go down here, you can search by all of those different metadata categories, how many times you've used an asset or the last time you used an asset, or something like dependency. So I can type dependency Redshift, and I can find all of the assets that are Redshift materials. And these are actually these aren't provided with S24. These are some that I added myself from Pixel Lab, but you can go ahead and add additional search terms onto that. And then you can add a smart search. So now I can call this Redshift metals. Type. And when I clear the search, now I've got this smart search here. So I can really easily pull up the Redshift metals anytime I want to. Awesome. And if more assets are added that match that are using Redshift and have metal as a keyword, those will automatically show up in this smart search.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I used to do a ton is, make your own lib4d files. And I'm assuming you can still do that, probably even easier with this new asset browser, and be able to build your own collections. Like I download a lot of stuff from like CCO textures or whatever. And I like to just have that stuff there easily browsable. And it's so cool that you can now add tags to it. So you can easily search for all this stuff and organize. And I think I think we missed because we didn't go to the full screen of your screen, but the asset browser is now a docked button right there that just pops up. It's not a separate window like it used to be. It pops up. It's right in the interface. Really cool. And I think one of the best parts about the new asset browser is the fact that you don't have to download gigs of files, and it's all within the cloud. I don't know if you want to show how that works with this new asset browser.
Right. Yeah. So if I go back and search for Vase again, you can see that all of these have little cloud download icons because these are all in our current online library of assets. And so you can choose to download any of these on demand just by clicking on them, or you can select multiples and go up here and choose download selected. And then they'll be cached on your local computer. So you can always, prepare if you're going to be offline, grab a bunch of assets that you think you might want to use, and you'll have them cached locally. But the great thing is that you don't have to download gigabytes and gigabytes of assets. And because we're providing a library to you from the cloud, we can continue to update that library at any time. So, at various times, subscribers may be able to get some extra bonus assets. And that library is just going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things. Like I collaborated with you guys at MAXON to make a little sketch and tune scene files thing that is, if you look at the sketch and if you search sketch and tune here, I'm sure you'll find all my little files and stuff like that. But I think it's cool to have, more and more artists that we all look up to that are way better than me, add more assets to this. Like, Sebastian's characters are amazing resources. I've just been using them, trying to learn character modeling and just breaking down how he models his characters here, really like the polygon flow and stuff like that. It's really informative. We have a couple of questions coming in. I still want to, mention that we are taking questions from the YouTube chat, so keep asking away. So we have some questions about the content or the asset browser. It's not the content browser anymore. But Joel asks, is there a nice lamp like Rick's in that asset manager, that little M, the Maxon logo back there? Maybe we can talk about that. That's the new Maxon logo for those of you out there that don't know that. We just got a Maxon rebrand here.
It is, yes. Now that we've got Red Giant, Redshift, and Cinema 4D and Forger all under the same Maxon umbrella, for years and years and years, Cinema 4D and Maxon were kind of synonymous because it was the only product. But now that there's a whole bevy of technology under the Maxon umbrella, it was time to create a new brand. And so they've created this logo. This is not the Cinema 4D logo. It's the Maxon logo. That. Yeah, the ball is still there. But this is the logo for the whole company. It comes with a great rebrand. There's Tendril did a great animation introducing the new logo for us. So we're super excited about this new brand and sort of our big chunky new logo type that doesn't look like it belongs on the back of a lift gate of a truck.
Yeah, I can't tell you, when I first started using Cinema 4D, I'm in traffic and I see those trucks with the yellow Maxon logo, and it's the same font, for the most part. And I'm like,
pretty close.
Do they also do freight shipping or something? Like, what's going on here? Or is that like a Maxon truck full of C4D boxes or what? So we have a couple more questions about the asset browser from Fried Pixels, some guy, I don't know, James.
Hey, James.
Yeah, good to see you, James. He's got two questions. He's very greedy. Will this grab all of your old stuff from content libraries from R21 and like 23, or is that something you'd have to like relink in? Like, how do you deal with existing lib4d files, I guess?
Right. We made that super easy for folks. So if you open the old content browser, which is still in there, you can right click on any of your content browser libraries and there's an option convert to assets. Oh, I'm showing it. If you want to pull the screen up there. Yeah. There's a convert to assets option. So you can just click that and say where you want to put it. And it'll actually export all of that into a preset library in the asset browser.
Oh, wow. That's like super easy.
Then you can just, if I clear this search down here in converted, here you see that CVHDRIs, and you can go in and from here you can drag them into, anywhere in the folder structure you want. This folder structure is based on the database, not based on the internal storage. So you can put things wherever you want and add whatever keywords you want to add to them. And then, when you're creating libraries, that's super easy as well. If you have objects selected here, you can just add objects to database. You can choose what the database you want to put them in. You can give them a version number, and then you can choose what folder you want to put them in. And then you have the same option for materials and for scene files as well.
There's one more question. Once you download an asset, let's just say those vase models, maybe they get updated with, I don't know, Redshift materials. Do they automatically update, or is there any indication of like you have the little cloud icon? Is there also an icon that says like, hey, this asset was updated and you can like reload it or something like that?
That's a good question. There's a recently created option which will show anything that we've recently updated.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool.
I don't know that we actually surfaced assets that you've downloaded but have been updated since you downloaded them. That's actually a really good idea. But we do have the ability to, when you insert objects, you have a choice here whether you want to add them as objects, instances, render instances, or XREFs. And this is actually our old legacy XREF. So it links to the asset within the asset browser. So let's pull one of those lamps, for instance. And if I just drag that over here into the object manager, it's got to download it real quick from the cloud. You'll see that this is actually referencing the lamp within the asset database. And so if a new version of that were to come out, we could just drag that version over and replace the version with the new one. But obviously we wouldn't want to automatically do that in your scenes because
for sure
our version may be different than what you intended when you built your scene.
Yeah. That's not the lamp I downloaded. So you were mentioning how, a lot of these assets are in the cloud. Do the meta tags that you assign to objects remain local, or is that also pulled from the cloud?
We have assigned keywords that are on the cloud, but you can assign your own keywords, and those are stored in your own local preferences database.
Yeah.
That's portable as well. You can export that and move that around. But
nice.
But yeah, it's those are specific to you, so they're on your local computer.
Awesome. So one last asset manager, because we haven't even gotten to like the juicy stuff. Is there a way to create an online shared library of assets with that manager? So say you make your own, can you also like share that to specific people?
Yeah. So obviously there's a possibility to share. That's the technology that we're using. We haven't yet. We probably will work with some, specific vendors to share libraries, but we're not quite ready to open up for everybody to have like an online sharing space.
Gotcha.
But you can certainly, anytime you have a set of assets, you can export those to a standalone database. And then that becomes a zip file that you can just send to somebody else. If you're in an organization and you have shared storage, you can just link all of your asset browsers into that same shared storage.
Okay.
We don't really recommend it with Dropbox and things like that, because if you're both writing to the library and it syncs at the same time, there may be conflicts. But that's something that we're looking to improve down the road too.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to let's keep going and get to the placement tools here. So we got this brand new asset browser, which like feeds in perfectly to help with this next feature that you're going to demo, which I think is like one of the two big ones that I think are in S24.
Yeah, absolutely. So the placement tools are awesome. I've got the placement tool active here in the interface, and I can just drag from the asset browser, and you can see that I immediately get a bounding box for this space. And that's where that proxy geometry comes in handy. We can actually store the dimensions and even proxy geometry for all of these assets. And then without even downloading it, I can start to see where it might fit in my scene. And you can see how it's adapting to the geometry already in the scene. It'll even, adjust to that little ripple in the rug. So as soon as I lift my mouse, it's going to download the asset and drop it right into the scene there. Boom. And the placement tool allows me to, and that's because I placed it as an XREF. It's not letting me do the scaling. Let's go back to this way. And the placement tool allows me to go in and adjust the scale and rotate all within the same tool. And then you can control drag and create copies of these too. So you can really quickly line up objects. Like I can line up a whole row of these vases up here on the shelf.
And these are the after the initial one, the other ones are loading as instances by default, which is great if you want to keep your scene nice and speedy.
Totally. Yeah. So everything's geared towards keeping the viewport speedy, keeping your renders as fast as possible. And then, just making it super interactive for you to get your objects into your scenes. No more needing to drop to floor.
Yeah, right.
Snapping isn't really a thing anymore. I mean, it is for modeling operations, but, just for getting objects where you need them, it's super easy.
I mean, this is a great way to place things on. Like I know I use constraint tags a lot with characters. So you want to put a bow tie, like I'll put a bow tie on a penguin because why not? And to like actually place that bow tie and use a constraint tag to stick it there. Like this makes that process even that much easier too, to put, accessories on characters or whatever.
Totally. Yeah. And even if you're in a motion graphics context and you're taking a logo, you can add greebles onto it super easy.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. This is like, I call this feature the Kit Basher's dream come true.
Yep. And then like you've got stuff like if you've got something that's wall mounted like this light, you can change the axis that the place tool uses. So by default, it uses Y because usually you're placing things on top of other things.
Right.
But I changed it here to Z, and you can see that I can just place this along the wall just as easily as I can, along the floor.
Yeah, it's awesome. This is such a huge game-changing workflow enhancer for sure. The ability to just place things so easily like that. And that's not even like what the maximum amount of stuff that this tool can do.
Right. Yeah. So that's the precise placement tool,
right?
Or the place tool. But then we've also added two more tools to make it easy to place things in your scene. So we've also got a scatter tool where you can basically just paint objects onto the scene. So for this, we've got a landscape here, and we've got some trees, and I've got the scatter pen active here, and you can see that down here we can base this on the selection, or we can actually drag in specific objects and change the frequency with which they're going to be used. And then we can, adjust and randomize the tool a little bit. But basically what happens is we just draw on the landscape, and you can see that we're really easily able to populate this landscape with trees. And then we can go in here and go into remove mode, and we can remove some of these maybe from the riverbed that we didn't want. And then like that one right there, I just kind of wanted a different place. So what you can do is activate the scatter object, choose edit mode, and you can go back into the place tool and you can select just that one tree. And now you can use the place tool, except it's in Z mode. Switch that back to Y mode. And then you can use the place tool to place just that one tree. And we can also keep the orientation there so that it doesn't,
so it's always facing
reorient.
positive Y. Yeah. Like this is just the ability to art direct the scatter. Like it's crazy how we used to do this literally just like a couple weeks ago. You would clone onto a surface, you do the random thing, and like how much time have we spent changing that damn random seed? Like nope. Oh, I like that, but that one. And then you have to go and like hide it with the the MoGraph selection tool and stuff like that. Like this is such a huge game changer as far as easily being able to populate a scene. It's so incredibly useful. And the fact that like, and I didn't even realize the chances that, like, you can have 5 different tree models, and then you can actually change the frequency of like, well, I want this tree to be placed randomly 10 times more than like all the other ones and stuff like that. Like that is the amount of control you have with scattering elements now is just out of control. It's such a huge time saver.
Totally. Yeah, and this is a new scene that we hadn't really shown before, but something I realized that we weren't really making clear was that it's actually can be based on the stroke direction too. So here I've got just some little footprints that I made. And if I start dragging this out, you can see that whichever direction that I curve the stroke, the feet will actually follow that direction. So if you've got arrows or footprints or anything that's got directionality to it, you can really easily control that directionality just by the direction that you paint your strokes.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Yeah, you could just like build a brick wall or something and have every brick orientate the correct way or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Learning new things about this already after just 1 week.
Yeah.
Like, wait, this is actually a lot cooler than I thought.
Yeah. Now, of course, the most fun and the one that you've been waiting for, I know, EJ, is the new dynamic placement tool.
Yes.
And this one is just so awesome because really in real life, nothing's ever stacked perfectly. There's always a little bit of chaos, right? And this allows you to get some of that chaos and to get things to interact properly with each other. So, here we have, what I have right over there in my garage, a jar full of nuts and eye bolts and screws and things like that. And what we can do is jump into the dynamic place tool. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and change the scale here because these are real world scale objects. So we want the dynamics to work more like a centimeter scale.
I feel like that's a dynamic setting that I didn't know played such a huge role in dynamics until like a year or so ago.
Yeah. And it's really important here because we're actually generating low res collider geometry for all of these objects. And that's what allows the dynamics to go super fast. And if you set your scale properly, then it knows how small to make that collider geometry, what precision to use when making that collider geometry. And then you've also got this option here to adjust the accuracy.
Gotcha. Because I mean, basically, if your scale in that simulation setting's too big, you're going to have pretty big gaps in between. Like, is it creating a bigger buffer between objects? So you might see spaces. So that's
exactly. Yeah. So, we'll go ahead and do this and I can show a little bit more about the colliders, but this purple handle here is the best because, how often have you had just a stack of objects on top of each other and you need them to just be not on top of each other, like actually separated out. So you can just drag this purple handle and they just drag out. And then, you can rotate, you can move, you can scale these, and it's keeping all within one tool and it's keeping the collisions all along. You notice that gravity is not affecting anything, but as soon as I hold down shift and click just a little bit, all of those objects are going to be affected by gravity and settle in. And as
And
long
there's
as they keep
no,
shift held, they'll continue to settle.
yeah, and there's like no dynamics tag added to anything. Like these objects are already colliding with all the other objects in the scene.
Yeah, yeah. And if I try to visualize colliders here, you can see what's kind of happening here is that we're creating low res proxy geometry automatically in the background for all these objects. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned that accuracy in the scale setting here. If I drop this accuracy down, what you'll see is that jar, it actually becomes solid. Yeah. But as we increase that accuracy, it's getting a closer real representation of the actual form of the geometry, but it's still converting it all into like simple boxes, so the dynamics are super fast.
And you don't have to worry about like that hole getting closed off like some of the faster, like if you did the dynamic system, you had automatic, it would kind of shrink wrap your object so it wouldn't get that concave information of those objects. This is just crazy. Yeah, show how you can just like pick everything up again and group it together and then just make it fall all over again. Like you basically are like Avengers, like WandaVision, like just picking things up and throwing it down, or you're Magneto right now with all the metal. Right?
I like that.
Yeah. You just pick it up and just throw it down. So cool. Now, I think a lot of people would ask, is this built on the existing dynamic system, or like what's going on behind the scenes here?
I think it's a little bit of the old tech and a little bit of new tech going on.
Okay.
All at the same time.
Very interesting. So this might be a little sneak peek into the future of what dynamics may be.
Well, we've brought some great new engineers on in the simulation area. So that this was their first project, and super stoked how this came out.
Yeah, this is the crazy part is I forget who it was, but someone on Twitter was trying to break and slow down the dynamic simulation. So they had a very densely meshed volume mesher, and there was like 5 of them. There must have been like almost 1 million polygons, and it was running smooth as butter in the viewport and doing the dynamic collisions. Like there's something going on here, because if you did that with regular dynamics, it would crawl a little bit. So there's this dynamic system is, you could get thousands of objects in here and they can all collide together and clump and all that good stuff. Like I've played around a lot with this so far, and it's been fun. I don't know if you want to. So Logan asks, can we adjust the gravity of that dynamic simulation? So it looks like there's friction, there's bounciness, there's some settings that you can play around with, along with looks like some
there's gravity right here. So like if I want to have it be anti-gravity, I can.
Woo! That's fun.
Now, I think, we could even float the gravity, along the X direction instead.
So you can actually have things look like they're getting blown away, like to the left or right or whatever. Whoa! Look at that.
Yeah, if you wanted to place in a strong wind, you could. We could do like regular downward gravity and then some sideways gravity at the same time.
That's fun. Now you're getting all this cool animation. I think one of the biggest questions that was asked when you first demoed this last week during the 3D Live 3D Motion show was, is there a way to like bake this down into keyframes? And
and that's funny, because it's not even something we really even considered in development, but you can use the old Cappuccino tool to do it.
I love Cappuccino so much. There's so many people that don't know that this exists.
So we just, and you said if we hold down shift, right, EJ?
Yeah, I think if you hold down shift and start the real time and then move, or maybe not holding down shift.
Yeah, I know that for one object it's working, and I think that
I think
there
for
may
multiple,
be two things we're going to fix with multiple objects. But let's just start real time with this one, and yeah, there we go. You can see it's working with one object there.
like actually just create a sphere, and like you could get a really nice just ball roll with no having to figure out like what's the radius and do an expression, blah blah blah.
Yeah, let's just make this a little bit of a simpler scene.
There we go. Yeah.
And yeah, we can just start real time. Well, we'll make sure
Yep,
dynamic place is active. And
let's
then
go. Yeah. Wee. And that's all keyframed. And another thing that would be a perfect companion to this is there's also the keyframe reduction tools that you can like, get rid of all those keyframes. So you can art direct it a little bit more and stuff like that. But basically what Cappuccino is to, if you're used to After Effects, that they have the motion trace, which just records all of your mouse movement and records it to keyframes. It's the exact thing. The only thing is we're using this to just keyframe the dynamics and that dynamic placement tool, which is like, it's so crazy how like the brand new and the old combine to just create some really cool functionality.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the beauty of Cinema 4D, right? Is we're always constantly surprised by how all the users find to tie the different features together and use them in ways we didn't even think of.
Right. Yeah. It's funny that that's the first thing that came to people's minds when this was, and you're like, oh, wow, we've been sitting with this for how long, and we never thought that was going to be a thing.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, the coolest part about this all is that you can, how many times have people, like I know myself, I've had to clump a bunch of objects, stack a bunch of books together or something like that. Or, I have a bunch of pennies or coins or Bitcoins, blah, blah, blah. And you want to have them fill a bowl, and you'd have to clone the things. You'd have to put dynamics tags on everything, make sure the dynamics settings are dialed in right so they're accurate. Put a collision tag, make sure the collision tag's good, and run a simulation and hope that it runs correctly. If not, you have to add your colliders to guide this stuff. But the art directability of the dynamics placement tool is just, you can do everything in just a single click now with very minimal setup. It's the placement tools are like worth the price of admission, I think. And we haven't even gotten to the other awesome stuff in S24.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about the animation features?
Yeah, I think everyone here is really excited to hear about the animation tools. We've got a lot of animators that are in our audience and stuff like that. So let's talk about all the nice, sexy new animation features, which I think aren't getting enough attention, because there's a lot here for animators to get really dial in their animations.
Yeah, they probably aren't, because there's just so much to talk about in S24. But the biggest thing is this new animation curve evaluation. Really, it's not even as much a feature as it is just making it so much easier for animators to do their work. So the old curves, you can kind of see the comparison here, in motion. The new curves just allow us to get a much snappier animation. And if I pull up the F curve window here, we can see this is the old one here. And you can see that as I drag, there's a point at which I can't really pull that curve any tighter. This curve, if I can actually drag this weird thing that you couldn't actually really have, where the curve's overlapping itself. And the new curves just act like you expect them to act. Like I can drag all the way over here, I can drag all the way over there, and I can get these really sharp curves. And then, we've also improved the overshooting. And then, another thing that I should mention while we're talking about curve easing is in R23, for anybody who missed it, we added copying and pasting of easing. So if you've got different length animation tracks, you can copy these easing curves and paste them among multiple keyframe values.
Yeah, that's one of the things that was a little bit of a slog, is trying to match curves and stuff, because that's something I feel like if you're coming from After Effects land, you can easily copy keyframes and paste into another object and get them to look the same. The other thing that I don't know if you were going to mention, but just the way you can select, and I don't know if that was updated in R23 or not, but just the ease in which you can select, because that whole curve UI is like, it's much brighter. The tags aren't these tiny little triangles anymore. They're nice, big, like bolder handles that you can grab onto, those Bezier handles.
Yeah, we got some feedback from our feedback form. Somebody pointed out, really rightly so, that once you select these curves, you can't tell. They would turn orange. You couldn't tell which one was which anymore. You couldn't tell which was your Y and which was your
orange
X and
spaghetti.
Z.
Yeah.
And so we thickened the curves, and we actually made them preserve color. Even in selection. So, the difference is more the thickness rather than changing to that orange. So yeah, it's a lot easier to work now in the F-curve view there too.
Now, I know that, I run into this quite often, is where you have two objects that have the same path. So their lines, their animation curves are the exact same. So now, would it be easier to select like one object if you have two objects selected on the left? You bring up both of their F curves, you can easily select one versus the other, or make more sense of it.
Yeah, I think it's basically a difference with XYZ, but I think we have made it easier, not just to select in the F curve mode, but to control your filtering of the timeline as well. In R23 we added the filtering here, as well as the search bar filtering, so you can filter by object name and track name.
Man, I feel like absolutely no one uses that stuff or knew that existed. Yeah. I think I'm hearing minds exploding in the chat that you can actually filter that stuff, because that's the same filtering system in the object manager, which again, I don't know if many people use that there.
Yeah, so I can just filter down to cube.1 really easily like that. But then in 24, we also, one of the things that we found was constantly confusing people was the difference between automatic mode and then sort of the user mode, where you drag a specific object in.
Right.
And both have very key uses. Like, in a lot of character animation contexts, you want to pull in the specific objects that you want to animate and not see anything else.
Exactly.
Whereas, a lot of times, especially in motion graphics, you just want to see everything with a keyframe.
Yeah.
And so we made that super easy to toggle between the two with this user mode and automatic mode toggle. And then we moved all of the various filtering options that were all over the timeline menus, and put them all in one menu. So you can really easily see, what's controlling the visibility of objects in your automatic mode. And you can even save your own presets. So
that's awesome.
If there's, if you want only active take and, only tags, you can set up a preset for that.
And you can also do something similar with the viewport settings, like the filters in the viewport too, right? Save your own presets, or...
Yeah, that was new in R23, the ability to, first of all, tear this menu out so that you could change, what was visible, and then also to be able to actually save presets. Yeah. And then in 24, we actually added this geometry-only playback option, which everybody just loves.
It's huge, yes.
So you can turn that on, and this isn't a great scene for it because it doesn't have a whole lot of chrome. But
sure.
When you turn this on, basically, anytime you start playback, it's automatically going to filter out everything that's not geometry.
So this is great to render out a quick playback blast or something like that, to like a wireframe, like not wireframe, but like a quick preview to render out. Not only that, but it also speeds up your scene because it turns off everything else that you really don't need, and you can see everything more in real time.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. It speeds up playback, and also, especially when you're in, character animation tasks and you've got all of those splines everywhere that you're using for controllers.
Yeah.
Just being able to have those automatically hide when you play back so you can actually see your character move. That's where it comes in really handy.
Nice. Yeah, that's huge. I know whenever you went to drag and drop an object in the timeline before, it was hard to figure out like how do I get back to where I was before. And I think that user mode is like solves all those issues. Like there was you had to go to default bookmark or something before to get back to like where you started from and all that good stuff. So
Yeah,
so
it
many,
always really confused people, and so we hope
yeah.
that these changes will help a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like I feel like give me quality of life features any day that I'm going to be using 50 times a day. You know what I mean? Versus like some shiny new feature, even though like I feel like the dynamic placement's shiny and new, but like I feel like I would use that 50 times a day too. So it's like you get these, it's like the best of both worlds. You get the shiny new features, which you'll use on a day-to-day basis, I feel like. And then these also quality of life improvements with the animation, the asset browser, all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the uh, I know that you have a couple more animation focused features that you can just kind of keep going with the animation
Sure.
stuff.
Sure. So the tween tool is one that folks have been super excited about, and this
Yeah.
just allows you to have a lot of control over retiming your animation. This is something that character animators have been using forever, and it's the ability to go in here and create new keyframes that favor one direction or the other, the previous or the next keyframe. So you can favor the next keyframe and just really easily retime the animation by setting up things like that. And then we built into this tool also the ability to easily to move your keys. So you can activate which tracks you want to control down here, and then you can just hit +1, -1, and you can move these keys, in increments. And then also, if you hold down the Shift key, you can ripple the keys, so all the keyframes further down the animation will move at the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy how much stuff you can do without ever opening up the timeline window, you know?
Yeah.
And I want to plug Chris Schmidt at Rocket Lasso. I think he does a really amazing breakdown as far as how all these tools really streamline and improve like something as complex as a character workflow. He's got this animated character that's jumping, and he basically takes it from like just key poses all the way to like finished, polished piece without ever opening the timeline, which is insane. Like it's such a cool new feature added here, which again I think is so under the radar just because all the other amazing features.
Yeah, I definitely encourage folks to see how he uses the tool. I'm not a great character animator, not a great animator, period.
I mean, that
So
cube is it's moving pretty good, man.
I had to get that scene from somebody else.
Can't even animate a cube, man. Oh, we need to enroll Rick in animation boot camp. Let's go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and speaking of animation and getting animation from other places, we've added a really cool car rig too. So I'm just going to grab one of the cars from the asset browser, this hot hatch, and all of the cars that we deliver through the asset browser, we've added this car rig to by default. So you can see that this car comes in with all these controllers that you can adjust the steering or the drift. But where this, and you can see here with the steering, it's actually, I don't know if you guys can see that, it's a little small, but it's actually turning both the wheels in the front and the steering wheel even.
Oh, wow.
And what's really awesome is that we can go up here into top view and we can draw out a spline. And then I'll just go in here to the car rig and let's just set it to show us the controllers.
That's another feature which I know a lot of character animators, they don't know that you could just solo the most important aspects there, like controllers, components, all that kind of stuff, filter all that out.
Yeah, so we just drag that spline in, and now we can just really quickly animate this car around the spline. And so let's just start it here, and we'll go to there, and then let's sort of bring our camera in closer. And as it turns that corner there, you'll see that the wheels are actually turning just
wow.
right. But, that's probably more of a tight of a turn than this car could probably make. And it is a hot hatch, so we need it to drift, right?
Tokyo
So
Drift,
we just grab this back controller here. I'm going to go into object mode here. And we can set a keyframe here. And then we'll maybe set a keyframe here for it to settle in. And then we'll come back here and we'll just drag that drift out. And we can get it to drift around that corner. And then here again is where those tween tools can really come in handy, because we could go in here to the tween and we can pull that timing in, or we could go in here in the center part and we can say, well, let's favor this direction or favor that direction, and retime this animation really easily.
Man, you're coming a long way from that cube animation. This is looking great.
It's all thanks to the assets that they provide within the asset browser.
Quick question. This was a question that was asked a little bit ago, but all the assets, all those models in the asset manager, are they free to use in commercial work, or is it case by case basis? Or
for the most part, yes. But there are, it's always a good idea to double check the info tab here. And there's some annotations. If it doesn't say anything about rights protection, then you're free to use it.
Okay, cool. All right. Maybe we can switch gears. We got about 10 or so minutes left. Let's talk Redshift updates really quick, because I know we probably have a lot of Mac users out there. Can you fill us in on any Redshift news for Mac users?
Yeah, exciting news. Redshift for Metal Macs is officially available now. So if you've got a Navi or what's the other kind of card?
Vega.
Vega. Thank you.
Yeah.
A Navi or a Vega card. You can use your Navi or Vega AMD cards on a Mac to render using Redshift. And
Awesome.
M1 will be supported. It's already supported as well. You just need Big Sur once it comes out.
Yeah, I know a lot of these renderers that are getting adopted by Macs, they all have some kind of dependency on the Big Sur and stuff like that. But I think this is great news for anyone that's thinking about taking Cinema 4D Ascent, which we teach the Redshift from the ground up and how to use it. And I know one of those friction points was, we're trying to get Mac users, and me myself, I was on a Mac before I switched to PC, but I had like a 1080 Ti eGPU just so I could run Redshift. And it's just great that you can now natively support that, and you don't need to buy a $1,000 eGPU solution or something like that. So it's exciting to see that Mac is getting back into the picture here a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing with Apple Silicon is really exciting, and we're thrilled as a company to be really at the forefront of that with them. Cinema 4D was available on M1 the day it shipped, and here we are with Redshift on M1 ready to go as well.
I mean, those iMac colors, man. I want that yellow one. It looks nice.
Totally. And it's so thin.
I know, it's so thin and so light, Yeah, it's 1 millimeter thinner than the last one. That's what we really care about. Cool. So I think one of the things that maybe intrigues us all, and has for quite a while since it was first introduced or teased, I think was it S22? I'm talking about scene nodes here.
R23, yeah.
R23, okay. So for those of us out there that might be complete noobs to what scene nodes are, I know they're not production ready, so I think maybe there might be a lot of people that aren't even playing around with it, but I think there's a lot of people intrigued as to okay, nodes, that's kind of scary. I'm gonna play with the dynamic placement tools and scene nodes, whatever. Just kind of give us a little, just kind of talk about scene nodes and where they fit into the future of Cinema 4D.
Totally. Yeah. So scene nodes is something a little bit different for us. It's our new core for Cinema 4D that we're building out, but rather than building it, in the background, and not having any visibility to all of you, we're actually doing it in public. We're releasing it incrementally with each version. We think that along the way, there'll be opportunities for you to make use of the functionality we're providing there. And most importantly, we want to keep that conversation open. We want you to see what we're doing so that we can get the feedback from you, because we know that workflow is so crucial in the Cinema 4D experience. And we want to make sure that as we're adding all of this additional power into Cinema 4D and all this additional flexibility, that we're keeping a workflow that's going to work for all of you. So it's shipped in R23 is just a strictly nodal editor. And in S24, what we've done is added the scene manager, which brings back a lot of that hierarchical workflow that you know and love from the object manager. So I can show just a super quick demo of that.
Yeah,
I know we're running tight on time, but
yeah, I think that's one of the big things is with that scene manager. Like, I know that it's kind of like espresso and nodes and stuff like that. You don't really want to mess with it, but for those of you, like those that want full control, they can get into the nitty gritty and adjust those nodes and stuff like that. But I think one of the cool things is that was this the first version where there's the presets, like a node presets?
Well, there was node presets before, but the beautiful thing is that with the new asset browser, I mean, that's where this whole release kind of ties together with a bow. The asset browser ties in perfectly with the placement tools, and it also provides a key way for us to distribute and for users to access all of the node-based assets too. Yeah. So I'm going to start pulling up some of the node-based assets. And first of all, here we've got just a simple 7-segment display. This is a rich, smart asset. So you can change, whatever numbers you want here. And of course, I had to create this because the release number was 24. So I had to be able to do the 24
show, man, so good. Such a good show.
And so once we've got that, we can go ahead and extrude it, just like you would a spline in classic Cinema 4D. We can adjust the rounding. And then from there, we can add additional modifiers. So let's do something like add a greeble. Just drag that right onto this modifier stack. And you can see now that we've got this really nice greebly surface.
So that's like technically a generator object. Like
basically, yeah. I mean, it's a geometry modifier. So it's more like a deformer.
Okay.
Yeah. But we can do all of this rich sort of parametric geometry. I can, if I want those greebles to be on one side, I can put in like a select facing, and we can virtually parametrically select just the polygons that are facing in one direction. And we can
there's all those
adjust that
there.
as well.
Yeah.
And then the greebles will only be on sort of this positive X direction.
That's awesome.
And then we can take and create an instance from here. And we can take this other version of the extrusion and we'll just extrude that out a little bit. I'll go ahead and use islands. So it's just one surface, and we'll just do it like 4 centimeters. And then I can put a dual mesh effect on that version. And so we have the inner greeble 24, and then I have this outer sort of dual mesh tissue 24. And all of this is live all the time. I can go all the way back here to the base number and change it, and everything just updates automatically. And you can just keep throwing additional stuff into the modifier stack to procedurally create the geometry that you want.
Yeah, I've seen Thanasis, and I'm not sure if there's anything on Cineversity or on the on the MAXON YouTube page, but I've been seeing a lot of amazing procedural modeling results that are crazy. And I know, me personally, I don't know how many people out there in chat, raise your hand, are paranoid, like freak out if they ever have to make something editable. It's like I get cold sweats, like I don't want to make this editable because if I need to go back, like I need to save a copy, and like, did I save a copy that goes back to as far as I need it to? But to be able to work parametrically like this is, if this is the future of Cinema 4D, like and I don't have to make anything editable ever again and make copies and stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, totally. That's the beautiful thing here. I've got, I'll just create a classic Cinema 4D spline, and let's just create a circle as well. And I can just drag the spline right into the scene manager, so I can make use of my classic objects really easily. I'm going to go ahead and add a sweep. And this is not quite as full featured as the classic Cinema 4D sweep object yet, but it shows one really important thing about this, or a couple really important things about it. One is that we've added these placeholders. So rather than remember that the profile spline goes above the path spline, we've just got a little text hint to tell you. So you can just drag that right where it belongs. We can grab this circle and drag it right where it belongs.
I feel like such an idiot. I feel like every time I make a sweep, I have to like remember, like, did I do that right?
And again, the beautiful thing about this is I can go in. I don't need to make this editable or anything. I can just add a dual mesh effect onto this sweep. Just because of the size of those polygons, it goes a little bit nutty on the edges. But you can see that actually, if we do like a end side, it'll probably work a little bit better.
So this is object manager plus scene manager working in tandem at this point.
Yeah. So so here you can see we've got something like this. And the beautiful thing about this is that you don't even have to worry about it if you're one of those people who doesn't like nodes. Yeah. But in the background, the whole time, we're drawing a node tree.
Yeah.
So if you're a person that does like nodes, or if you're working with people who like nodes, they can work in that workflow too. And you've got all the flexibility and power of the nodal system. You don't have to, but you don't have to work in nodes.
Yeah.
And totally. The really beautiful thing about this is that, I think I probably said that 10 times. I'm really excited about this C node system, but things like this 7-segment display, the select facing, this greeble, these are all assets that we created. That myself and some of the other TV level like UX guys, we didn't have to ask a programmer to create these. So if I pull a dual mesh modifier into the node editor, you can actually open it up and see the nodes that we used to build this out. So if you are a more advanced user, you can create your own special effects like this and share them with other users.
And that's awesome. I think that opens up like a whole nother level of possibilities for developers. And I think that's one other exciting part about all of this is all the little presets that people can easily make now. I think the other important aspect of it is, like, I know until I started using Redshift pretty heavily, I was terrified of nodes, didn't make any sense. I didn't get it. But once you start using it, it kind of like something clicks in your head and you're like, oh, well, this is way easier to have one texture plug into bump and diffuse and blah, blah, blah. I don't have to copy and paste that, that same texture manually like you would do in the old, cinema, like standard C4D materials. But I think one of the greatest things about this is that there's this seemingly very complex thing going on behind the scenes, but in typical Cinema 4D MAXON fashion, you're making all this stuff very accessible, very easy to use. And if you don't want to deal with nodes, you don't have to. Like, you can use a sweep object just like you did before, and you have all these little presets and stuff like that. So I would say, like, if you never want to see a node or touch a node, you don't have to, and you can still work with Cinema 4D and get all the benefits of this new core that's being worked on, which I think is really, really great. Because I mean, maybe we talk about like the end goal with scene nodes is it's just going to totally be how you work, right?
Yeah, eventually. I mean, it'll take us time to get all of the functionality that you know and love from classic Cinema 4D into this system. Things like the dynamics and the particle systems and even MoGraph itself. It's gonna be a process. But like I said, we're gonna do it iteratively. We're gonna be getting feedback from all the users along the way. And you can already see how I think you could make use of the system to do some procedural geometry effects. And, just know that, it's not that it's not production ready, but it's just a technical preview because we know the workflows aren't fully there yet for you to create work end to end in any individual workflow with it yet.
Yeah, but I mean, it's exciting to see what people are doing. And like, I know when you first introduced it in the last version, I forget how many millions of clones were in the viewport, and it was just smooth as butter. So it's like, that's the end goal, is that, and that's that power that's coming up. And it's sure exciting to see that work being done on that while also doing stuff like the scatter tool and dynamic placement and all the animation updates and stuff like that. And I think it's definitely one of the biggest releases. I've seen a lot of chatter just in the past week. So I think you guys kind of knocked it out of the park with this one. And I know, all the good stuff that you like about Cinema 4D, that's because of Rick, and all the other stuff. All the other stuff you don't like Bug Matthias or something like that.
We have an incredible, extremely talented staff of developers, QA, UX, that are just so passionate about this product, just as passionate as you users are. And yeah, it's our joy to do this every day. And yeah, all the credit goes to them. I just kind of turn the ship a little bit with my little rudder.
You lay out a spline and get that car rig going.
Yeah.
I think we'll open it up for a few questions here. We'll wrap it up here pretty soon in like 5 minutes or so. But we have some questions that came in before, and more questions. If you have them, keep posting them in the comments, and we'll try to get to them. Talking about the car rig, can you easily swap out cars? Like if you do create that spline and say you animate that car, can you easily swap that punch buggy with like a Volkswagen Beetle or something and maintain that movement, or those other cars that are in the content browser at least?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not a super big expert on the car rig. That's about as far as I can go with it, is that quick little demo. But you know what? For folks that are interested, I know that the training team is doing a webinar on Monday, and they're going to be going into more detail with the car rig. So if you haven't seen all of the great webinars the training team's been doing while they can't go visit studios and do in-person trainings, they've got some great webinars, and I think we've got the link there that Kyle may have already put it in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a great training session on Monday that's going to be covering more of S24, and I know they're going into the car rig specifically. And
just to plug, I feel like I get emails almost every week about some live training webinar, either someone from the Red Giant team or something, someone doing something, someone teaching something about one of the MAXON products almost on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think they're doing sessions every Monday. They have some sort of a webinar, and then I'm not sure how often, but a lot of times on Thursdays, they're doing like Ask the Trainer type sessions as well.
That's awesome. And Thanasis, sometimes will show up there, which, may attract some people, might repel some. You never know. Awesome. Yeah, I think just checking the questions here. Oh, we got one very important question. This might be hard for you, though. What's your favorite new feature, Rick?
It would have to be the dynamic placement.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Dynamic placement is just so much fun to play with. And then, I love the asset browser because of what it means for us down the road of being able to deliver content to our subscribers, whether it be objects, materials, or, rich node-based assets, without having to necessarily do a complete new Cinema 4D update.
Yeah, I think that's one of the I think we see a little bit of that ease of use. I don't know how familiar with you are with the GSG Plus content browser they kind of built. And like one of the coolest things about that is like you download all the assets once and like say you plug it into a folder on Dropbox, kind of like what you were saying with lib4d files. If you want to share them within the new asset browser, you can just like, if you need to install on S22, R23, whatever, or on another computer, like I have a Mac and PC and I like to use it on both, you just target it to your Dropbox folder and it just pops all that stuff up. So yeah, the asset browser is really exciting because I know I have countless numbers of lib4d files that I know are probably straggling and like R19 still that I haven't brought over,
Totally.
So a nice way to bring everything over. And I do want to mention a little plug for GSG Plus. They just announced officially, I believe it was yesterday, all of their products are going to be shipped with GSG Plus. It's all in GSG Plus, one single subscription. And we're really excited about that because we have an amazing partnership with the folks at Grayscale Gorilla. And anyone who takes our Cinema 4D Ascent course gets to use a trial of GSG Plus with all the assets, the materials, the grunge maps, the new light maps, which are amazing, HDRIs, all that stuff. They get full access to GSG Plus during the length of Ascent, which is great because everyone's learning Redshift and there are some beautiful materials, Redshift materials. And like I said, all those grunge maps, we're learning how to build material nodes and stuff like that, which I know like freaks people out sometimes, but that's my main goal, is to help people get find the great benefits of using nodes, even if it's just a little bit. It's kind of like always like, just if you only use set driver, set driven, and espresso, just know that and like know how to adjust like the range mapper. Like that's all you need. That can do so much.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't know that you guys included GSG trial with the Ascent. That's awesome. They are killing it with all of the materials, the everyday materials and the car paints and all that great library of HDRIs too.
Yeah, and I saw a little sneak peek on a little press call earlier this week. So there's some pretty exciting stuff coming to GSG Plus still. So very exciting. Now I know you will wrap it up here. I know you mentioned the trainings that are happening over at MAXON. Was there anything else that's exciting happening at MAXON that you want to tease? Is there a new like when the next live shows are going to happen? Do we have any info on?
There's always exciting stuff happening with MAXON, but yeah, I think we're doing 3D motion shows every month. Wow. The next one is, let's just look real quick. I think it's on May 19th.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely look forward to that. Another full day of streaming for great artists and sneaking in some little tips and tricks and news in between.
I can't wait for NAB, man, in October. I hope it happens. Crossing fingers and toes and all the things. But Rick, it was so good to, anytime I can get paid to do my job and it's talking with you for an hour, like I'll take it. I'll take it. Got the best job in the world. But yeah, I appreciate all the hard work that not only you, but everyone over at MAXON does to not only make a great product, but to have one of the best communities out there for a software. I don't even know if I'd be doing in 3D at all if Cinema 4D wasn't so dang easy to use. So give my best to the entire team. And thank you so much for coming on here.
Will do. Thanks, EJ.
Awesome. So we just have some little cleanup to do as far as telling you some news about what's happening over here at School of Motion. We have our Community Inclusion Scholarship opening up this Monday. So yes, mark your calendars. And this is going to be for the summer session. And our summer session starts July 5th. And basically, if you're just new to this Community Inclusion Scholarship, School of Motion, we have this mission that we want to break down the barriers to learning and mastering and working in motion design. We want to make this stuff accessible. So we've developed the scholarship to try and help expand the community to include more underrepresented and historically oppressed groups. So if you want to check out more about this, look for the link to the application in the chat. And if you think you'd be a good fit for the scholarship, we really encourage you to apply. Or if you know someone else who might be a good fit, please be sure to share the link and spread the word out to anyone that you think would be a great fit. So just to let you know, this application period ends May 23rd. So you got a whole month. So yeah, awesome stuff. New session coming up, going to be exciting. Adding that GSG plus with Ascent is going to be killer. And if you're watching this and maybe Cinema 4D is completely new to you, and you're like, wow, this looks like a lot of fun, that dynamic placement tool. Like, how can I get me some of that? Well, we have some awesome C4D courses here at School of Motion, starting with Cinema 4D Basecamp, which basically takes you from knowing no 3D at all to being totally comfortable and working on your first projects in 3D. Had some amazing student works coming out of this. It's just so much fun seeing people open their eyes to the possibilities in 3D and basically fall in love with Cinema 4D, just like I did back in the day. And then for our more intermediate users, we have Ascent, and I've talked about that a little bit, where we have GSG Plus included with that trial, and we learn more advanced animation skills, third-party rendering with Redshift, a little bit of Octane there too, rigging for MoGraph, all kinds of stuff. Really, really beefy course there. And then one of our most advanced courses to date, Lights, Camera, Render, taught by none other than Octane Jesus. This course does a lot of world building and kit bashing. And I tell you what, like that course is the course that's going to benefit the most from the dynamic placement tools, the scatter tool, all that kind of stuff. Like David makes his own little forest scene, and man, is it much easier to do now. So definitely check out our C4D courses and all that. But yeah, thanks everyone out there for tuning in. Really appreciate you. Thank you, Kyle, for running stuff behind the scenes here and letting me kind of take over for today. And again, thank you, Rick, for sticking around with us. We'll see you in the next workflow show. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.